Did nefesh avarachaman meshochav decha el ritzonecha yishtachavei la 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 el muladarecha oh yarutz avdecha kemo haya yishtachavei la 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 el muladarecha la 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 ay la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la la. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome. Wow, great. A nice crowd. Wonderful. So good to see everybody here tonight, and welcome to those who are joining us remotely. If you're following in the Siddur, you can turn back to page 120 and 121 as we prepare to light the Shabbat candles. Do we have a person? Yeah, Wendy. All right, you're up. Tried and true. 120, 121. It's on.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
We all say Amen. Lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. All right, let's turn ahead in the Siddur to the bottom of page 132, 132. Before we start, I just again want us to turn our attention towards what we are doing and towards our tefillah. I don't know, maybe you're thinking to yourself, Rabbi Nori, why do you always harp on that to like draw the distinction between and turn your attention towards all that stuff? You're always talking about that stuff. The reason I do that is because that I'm speaking to myself. It's not easy to leave behind one way of thinking and shift into another way of thinking just like that, just because you parked your car in the parking lot and came through the front door. And I really do think it takes a conscious act, like lighting the Shabbat candles, like opening the Siddur, and like singing loudly in tefillah, things which we don't do during the rest of the week, that helps us to draw that distinction. So I'd again ask you to shift towards that frame of mind which teaches us to pray and to meditate and to sing loudly instead of just to work and to labor. So if you don't know the melodies, that's okay. Sing along anyways. Nobody cares. It's the spirit that counts, not the accuracy. And if you do know the melodies, well then just sing extra loud. Bottom of 132. Or zaru ala tzadi, ole yishrei lev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadi, ole yishrei lev simcha. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Or zarua la tzadik, ole yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzadik, ole yishrei lev simcha. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. 135. Again at the bottom of the page. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Oh ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ya la la la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la la, la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Turn to page 138 and 139. We'll sing verses 1, 5, and 9. When we get to the third of those verses, verse 9, the custom is to stand and turn towards the doorway, as if to greet the Shabbat, as if the Shabbat were a kind of person, specifically a queen, regal, and elevating. So 138, we'll sing together. Let's try a new melody, okay? Say, okay, Rabbi Nori. Yeah, that's right. That's good. It wasn't a rhetorical question. Okay, the chorus goes like this, and then we'll do the verses. Lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. How many of you already know that? Anybody? No? Lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. Again. Lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. Okay, now the verses go up to the higher register. And they go like this. Shamor v'zachor. See, they go to the major key. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmianu el ha'miyuchad Adonai echad Shemo echad. Really down low. L'shem u'tiferet ve'letihila lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. Good. We're going to do the chorus a couple times, and then we're going to do the 1, 5, and 9. Lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ishmiyan El ha'meyuchad Adonai echad Shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet ve'letila lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. Hidoreri kivarech kumiori uri shir daveri kevod Adonai alaich nigla lecha dodi likrat kahala penei Shabbat nekabela. Boi b'shalom ateret ba'ala gam besimcha uvetzala tochem unei am segula. Boi kala lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Good, you can be seated. Let's turn to the middle of page 141, about 6 lines up from the bottom. Ma'im rabim adirim mishbereyam adir b'marom Adonai Techa Nemnu Meo Levedcha Nava Kodesh Adonai Leorech Yamin. All right, page 142. Shalom Aleichem Malachei Asharet Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Boachem l'shalom Malachei Ashalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruch Hu Ni l'shalom Malachei Ashalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Seidchem l'shalom Malachei Ashalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We stand page 144 altogether. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash Shemei Rabba Be'alma divrach chirutei ve'amlich malchutei B'chayeichon u'vyomeichon ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יש שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח וידבר וידרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. Let's stay standing. Turn the page to page 146. Hi, li, 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch, nice and loud, Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed Nai. HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Good, you can be seated. Let's read the English together on page 148 in the middle. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. And about 5 or 6 lines up in the Hebrew, Umavir Yom. We'll sing together. Umavir Yom umevi laila, umavdil ben Yom uben laila, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo. El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu, Leolam Va'ed. Together. Baruch Ata Adonai, Hamari Varavim. 150 in the middle of the page. In English, together. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel, teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Kihem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negeh yomam v'layla, ve'avatecha al tasim imenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We stand for the Shema on page 152. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. You can be seated on 154 altogether in the Hebrew. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, amen. Let's turn ahead to 158. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות. מי כמוך, מי כמוך, מי כמוך, מי כמוך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות. מי כמוך, מי כמוך, מי כמוך, מי כמוך. Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? Your children witnessed your sovereignty, the sea splitting before Moses and Miriam. This is our God, they cried. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from the hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel altogether. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Good. On 160, let's sing all together. It's just the first couple lines, and then we jump to Ushmor Tzeitenu Uvoenu at the end there, where it indents. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom Hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu Malkeinu l'chaim Ushmor Tzeitenu Uvoenu Chaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu Malkeinu l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu l'chaim Ushmor Tzeitenu Uvoenu L'chaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Together the English and Hebrew at the bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, Hapores Sukat Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Amo Yisrael, Ve'al Yerushalayim, page 162. No, let's not do 162. Let's do 164. And if you stand for the tefillah as we prepare ourselves on 164. Lai 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 Adonai. Ya lai 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 Sfatai Tiftach. Lai 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 Ufi Yagid. Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Lai 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sfatai Tiftach. La 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 Ufi Yagid. Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. La 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 Adonai. La 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 Sfatai Tiftach. La 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 Ufi Yagid. Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. All together at the top of page 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imaot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה 168 אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. 170. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. You can continue quietly on 172 and following with the evening Amidah, or just with your own quiet meditations, and we'll join together on page 180. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Again, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Thank you. You can be seated. Let's turn ahead to page 371. 371. And while our hearts are still open from the Amidah, let's turn our attention to those who are in need of healing. Healing of the body, healing of the mind and spirit. And can I just say, it is so many people. There's so many. There's so much hardship and suffering. So many people who are deeply in need of something which seems beyond their grasp. So let's lend our voices to them in support and in spirit. and pray for their well-being as best we can. And we'll pause to allow you to add names towards the middle of the blessing. Misha Berach, Avotenu Vimotenu, Avram Yitzchak V'Yakov, Tzarevka Rachel V'Leah, Hu Yivarech et Kol HaCholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal all those who are ill, including
my grandson, Nathaniel.
Heather Mary, Jonathan Paradis, and Vilma Fachister.
My in-laws, Emil and Louise St. Germain.
Morris and Felice Friedman, Katie Adler, Linda and Steve Ely, Heather Murray, Margot and Jerry Hunt, Morris and Felice Friedman, Jerry Jacobson, Nyla Donahue, Luana Bachler.
Linda Aaronsaff, Joe Wagner, Sherry Silver, Barbara Frank, Lois Sorkin, Uvana Thomas, Louise Lyon, Wendy Fine.
Judy Kaplan, and the Friedmans.
Susie Horowitz, Keith Hood, Ken Burdett, Andrew Wheeler, and Edwin Spector.
Rita Crone, Ann Olin, Susan Eilers, Ron Ross, Larry and Crone, Phyllis Falk, Felice and Morris Friedman, Shannon Davis, Susie Horowitz, Heather Murray, and Ronnie Eggers.
Jim Thorne.
Sydney McLean, Judy Carmichael, Tammy Baker, Saber Johnson.
anybody from online there, Jeannie?
Yes.
Barbara Whitlock, Jackie Freeman, Vicki Garcia, Patty Beeman, Carol and Powell Hessel, Diana Swigger, Mike Roth, Dennis Sadler, Sherry Storch, Lisa Ann Gaston, Nakia Pugliese, Nia Fair.
Anyone else?
Wait.
Oh, yep.
Linda and Stephen Ely, Tuli Vittner, Mila Binstock, Shelley Perkel, Heather Murray.
All right, let's sing in the middle of page 371. Mi shebeirach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Thank you, that was good. Really good. Shabbat Shalom. Again, really nice to be here. Really nice to have you all with me. Starting to grow on me. Caution. If you have a Tanakh, a Chumash rather, in front of you, the Torah book, you don't need it, but if you have it, you can look along with. But don't worry if you don't have one, or raise your hand if you don't have one. There's 100 of them. Yeah, everybody got access to one or share one. There you go. We're approaching the end of the book of Numbers in our weekly reading of the Torah. And a really interesting story appears here, and you may be familiar with it already. It's an unusual story in the Torah for a number of reasons, and we'll get into it in a second. I want to read it first. But first I want to sort of place it in context. So if you turn to page 1074. 1074. Or 75. You can see that even at the top of page 175, take a census of the whole of Israel. The male descendants of the Israelites who came out: to Reuben, the firstborn, the descendants, Enoch, the Enochites, Palu, Hezron, Carmi, Ruvain. Right? There's a lot of names. This is one of those passages in the Hebrew Bible that is a genealogy. Maybe you think these are interesting. Maybe you think they're not interesting. There are scholars who dedicate, their primary scholarship to the study of these genealogies. And if you were in the know and you were reading these things, you'd be like, oh, Pinchas, of course, yeah, I know him, like he's related. You would know the relation. You'd have an intimacy with the names and the relationships where you'd recognize who's from what tribe. Is there a perpetuation of the Joseph cycle of stories here? Is there a tribal issue here? Why do I have these genealogies and not every genealogy ever? Don't worry. That's not what we're talking about. But in the midst of all of this assessment of the genealogies, and now you can turn to page 1079, just a few pages ahead. You can see those genealogies continue for several pages. It's an extensive list. And towards the end of that comes a very interesting story. I'm there in the middle of page 1079, verse 1, chapter 27. The daughters of Tzelofchad. I don't know how you say that in English, right? Protestants would have a way, Zelophehad, something like that, right? I don't know. But it's Tzelofchad. It's a name. It's a weird name, but it only appears here. And he is from the tribe of Menashe. Does that ring a bell? We're going to do a little genealogy. Who is Menashe? One of the sons of Joseph, who was born where? In Egypt, right. Joseph, for most of his adult life, was an Egyptian. He lived in, the hierarchy of Egypt. And he had two children. Do you know the other's name? Yeah, of course. Ephraim, right. Ephraim and Menashe. We still reference them in the Sabbath blessing. May God bless you like Ephraim and Menashe. Ephraim and Menashe each get an equal share of tribal land. You understand what that means? That means Joseph got twice. Nobody else gets 2 times, but both of his children, Jacob says, you are like my children. May you be like Ephraim and Menashe. That's why we still recall this. And so he is from that tribe. The son of Hefer, Gilad, Machir, the son of Menashe, the son of Joseph. So, they're dropping names here. I am from the son of Joseph. Okay, just so you know who I am, right? Okay. So he had daughters and only daughters, and they come forward. The names of the daughters, this is partly one of the things that's unusual. They're named. We know who these women are. They are given actual names, not just the wife of somebody. Machla, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah, 5 daughters. They stood before Moses and Eleazar, who was the priest, the Kohen, and the chieftains, the people, the leaders, and the whole assembly at the entrance of the tent of meeting. This is where adjudication takes place. And they said, and pay attention to the detail of their statement in court. They're testifying. Our father died in the wilderness. He was not from the faction of Korach. He wasn't part of that rebellion, right? First, they got to get that out of the way, because turns out a lot of people died in the desert. Most of them, by being bad. That's like a simple way of putting it. And by rebelling against Moses. But he was not one of them. And the way they express it here is very interesting. He was not one of Korach's faction, which banded together against God. See, they show that they understand this wasn't just a rebellion against Moses. But he died for his own sin. He didn't die because he was punished for the sin of joining Korach and that whole rebellion. He died for other sins. Right? They're not pretending like he's perfect, right? But he wasn't a rebel, right? He wasn't perfect, but he wasn't a rebel. And I read this actually as very innocuous. It's just a way of saying, because in the classical mindset, all deaths are the result of sin, right? I mean, there's sort of an equation with sin and longevity that is a bigger discussion, and there really is no equation between sin and longevity. But, they just say, oh, bechet omet. He died of his own things, right? It's sort of an innocuous way of saying he just died like everybody else of his own sins, right? You can imagine that as sort of a classical way of saying it. Anyways, now, and he left no sons. Now, I want you to do a little experiment, okay? I'm going to test your biblical knowledge a little bit here. I want you to name any woman who appears in the book of Numbers other than these women. It won't be easy. You got one very famous one. I didn't hear. No, not Rahab. She's later. Miriam. Miriam, right. So Miriam appears. She comes out of Egypt. Any other women by name come out of Egypt? You can't name one. So one thing this story reminds us of, the story is here, I believe, in part for this purpose. It's to say, hey, wait a minute. This story that we have been reading for the book of Exodus and almost the whole book of Numbers is 100% about men. That's not right. Turns out that is still an oversight made very prominently in broader culture. Proven by you can't name one. I could ask you if, name a man who exists in the desert. Well, there's Moses, there's Eleazar, the portion is named after Pinchas, him. We know the name of the designer of the tabernacle and his assistant. We know the name of all the spies who go and reconnoiter the land. There's dozens of them. So it turns out they get to this point in the book of Numbers, and there's been a blind spot. All the law that was given at Sinai, all of the law that's given subsequent to the Ten Commandments, all those books, all those dozens and dozens and dozens of mitzvot, and never once did anybody say, hey, what happens if the patriarchy doesn't work and there's no sons? Well, that obviously could happen. My bet is everybody here knows somebody who only has daughters. That happens all the time. But only here they come forward and they say, he's not to blame, he has no fault, he died of his own sins, whatever, but he left no sons. So they say, let not our father's name be lost just because he had no son. Give us a holding amongst our father's kinsmen. Remember, they're taking the census. Things are being divvied up. They're getting ready to go into the land. They're saying how many people over here and how many people over here. That's in order to distribute resources. So they're saying, hey, wait a minute. My father and his clan should not be penalized just because there's no men. And the very next verse is, Moses brought their case before God. I love that. Moses couldn't figure it out on his own. He's got Eleazar and 70 elders. They could not figure it out on their own. The 20 of us can figure out very plainly what should be done. But they had to go before God, and God, of course, tells them, the plea of the daughters of Zelophehad is just, and you should give them a hereditary holding amongst their father's kinsmen, transfer their father's share to them. Could not be clearer, directly from the mouth of God. So, I love this story. Not just for the obvious reminder about the tremendous and deeply rooted historical bigotry against women. Okay? I hope that's not offensive to any of the women. Because I mean it as a reminder to all of us, both the women and the men, that these are not struggles that we've somehow figured out and that now we're over them. I don't think so, at least. And very often, women are profoundly disadvantaged, not taken seriously. This is, this could not be clearer, that should not be our approach. That we should be careful to make sure that we treat men and women equally in terms of the way we consider the building of our culture and society. And this is also interesting to me because this is not a mitzvah, a commandment that is given on Mount Sinai. This is not part of God's tremendous overarching plan that he reveals to Moses over 40 days on Mount Sinai. This is what we call case law. This was an actual situation, an actual person. They are persons. They are named specifically. And their individual experience establishes a new law. In fact, God continues, even after he rules in this case, he says, further speak to all the Israelites, saying, if anybody dies without a son, you shall transfer the property to his daughter. In other words, God extends their individual experience to the global rule. He does not explain why he didn't know on Mount Sinai that this would be an issue and why not to say something ahead of time. And I'm going to cut him some slack and say that's fine, because it's all part of a broader plan to bring this story to our attention and to point out they're named. Right? These are people. The law cannot be oblivious to people and their personal experiences. I emphasize that because so often it is void and absent of the consideration of people and their experiences. Your experience counts. And not just in some touchy-feely way. It counts to impact and influence the way we build our whole society and the laws which we live by. These are not arbitrary things, just somehow magically handed down from supernatural powers. These are laws that derive from the experience of the people, of us. And as true as that is of our civil and civic laws and experiences, it's definitely true of our religious experience and the way we consider our religious practice. Who you are and what your experiences are, they will affect how you live your Jewish life. They are supposed to affect how you live your Jewish life, and to be a model and example for others. The Benot Tzlofchad is not just a really amazing story about a feminist twist and perspective towards the Bible, but it's also a reminder that the Bible is not, and the mitzvot are not separate from our experience. In fact, they're animated and they live because of us. And even God cannot anticipate and predict all the things which you and I will experience. And yet they mitigate and translate our Jewishness and the Torah's voice to us. And as such, our experiences don't just count, they are holy. They're sacred experiences. They mean something in the most significant and lasting way. Shabbat Shalom. Let's finish up the service with Aleinu. We turn to the back of the book. Page 586, we open the ark. Yes. And stand, page 586. Do I have an ark opener? Yep. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. On page 590, just about 6 or 7 lines up, כי המלכות שלך היא, ולעולמי תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. This week we mark Yortzeit for George Levitt, Yetta Harris, Dorothy Kaplan, Jerome Kaplan, Harriet Greenhut, Marissa Nicholsberg, Louis Sachs, Beatrice Cherkas, Jerry Cherkas, Helene Glickman, Rose Hoffman, Jean Monteleone, Bess Fine, Shirley Schulman-Rich, Gary Bernstein, Martha Young, Solomon Horowitz, Beverly Moskowitz, Francis Rodriguez, Don Friedis, Jean Greenbaum, George Kershoff, and Bob Eagle. We continue to mark the yahrzeit of those who passed in the last year: Curtis Young, Dave Bogart, Roland Jolin, Mark Commissaro, Janice Teplitz, Rabbi Bob Kersner, and Robert Whitlock. Any other yahrzeits tonight? Those who are here to observe a yahrzeit, you want to say a little something about the person you're here for? Anybody else? No. Tehei nishmotam tzururot b'tzror hachayim. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life, and may their memories be a blessing. Kaddish on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah ve'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chaye echon u'v'yom echon u'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kari v'yimeru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'omei olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'yimeru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Good, you can be seated. Just a couple of announcements. First of all, thank you to Judy and Jeannie for leading the tech crew tonight, the sound and camera for our remote. If you're joining us remotely, we're really glad you're with us. And if you live around here and you want to come and be with us in person, we'd like that too. Any other announcements? Jeannie? Oh, yep. And James, our fearless leader. Good? All right.
Please continue to read your TBD emails for announcement and event details. We have our playground cleanup coming up. Please come on in person. We'd love to see more of you. And please feel free to reach out for any questions, concerns, information. If I'll give you the answer if I have it. If not, I'll find the correct answer quickly. And we thank Sergeant Collins for keeping us safe tonight and every time he puts on his uniform.
Wendy? That's August. I want to repeat it so everybody can hear. August 2nd. At Cool Ray Field is TBD night for the Stripers. An email went out about it. We'll be there, a bunch of folks. Let's gather together and pray for good weather, right? Yeah, good. Okay. Any other announcements? Birthday this week. If you see Barry Abus, wish him a happy birthday. I think that's our only birthday this week. Don't forget, it's less than 2 months till the high holidays. It's coming up. We're already making our preparations and beginning to get the place ready. If you are planning to be here, please keep an eye out for correspondence and respond quickly. And if you don't yet have a place to be, please consider joining us and being with us. We'd love to have your presence. We have a really, really nice service, a great choir, and just really special services. Yes, Barry. at 1:30 this Sunday, if you're interested in joining the choir, is their next rehearsal. It's good. It's really good. Think about it. Anything else? No? Then I'll just say Shabbat Shalom, and please join us for Kiddush and a little refreshments, and say hello. Shabbat Shalom.